But let's begin this morning in the Middle East as the U.S. and Israel have launched new strikes on Iran this morning. Iran has been firing back at Gulf nations and Israel. In central Israel this morning, at least one person has been killed and another seriously wounded in an Iranian strike. The fighting is also having an impact on gas prices. Oil surged to over $100 a barrel overnight for the first time since 2022. Meanwhile, Tehran has named Mujtaba Hosseini Khamenei as its new leader. He takes over for his father, who was killed in the first hours of the war. For more on this, we're joined by CBS senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams, who's reporting from northern Iraq this morning. Holly, let's talk about the new supreme leader. What can you tell us about him, and what is the significance of this appointment?
Hey there, Vlad and Adriana. On the face of it, I think it kind of looks like continuity, doesn't it? Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader, is the son of the former supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in an airstrike at the outset of the war. He was chosen by Iran's Assembly of Experts. That's a group of 88 male Islamic theologians. He's in his 50s. He apparently previously served in Iran's army. He's said to be close to Iran's powerful revolutionary guards. He apparently has the requisite theological background. And although until now he's been quite a shadowy figure, according to some reports, he previously served as a kind of gatekeeper to his father. But what I think we need to remember is that the Iranian regime has an interest in making this look like continuity, like strength, like business as usual, primarily, I think, for a domestic audience inside Iran, but also perhaps for Iran's proxy groups around the Middle East. Because make no mistake, the Iranian regime has been profoundly weakened, not just by this war, but even before it, by mass protests and a dysfunctional economy. Of course, what we don't know is how much of a power base the younger Khamenei, the new supreme leader, has in his own right, or whether there are other people inside the regime who are still pulling at least some of the strings. Now, speaking on the weekend, President Trump, speaking about a new Iranian leader, said, quote, if he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long. And even before the selection of this new supreme leader, Israel had threatened to kill any new leader. So all in all, it doesn't look like a very secure position.
And Holly, as this conflict rages on, what's the fallout that you're seeing on the ground in neighboring Iraq?
So, Adriana, we're in northern Iraq, where there are several Iranian opposition groups based here, living in exile. Some of them are armed. They're Kurdish. They represent the Kurdish ethnic minority, which is around 10% of Iran's population. Now, last week, President Trump encouraged those opposition groups to launch a military intervention inside Iran against the regime, saying that that would be, quote, wonderful. One group we spoke to said that they were in touch with the U.S. government. They thought it was an opportunity for them. And when we asked if they'd been promised support by the U.S. government, they said they couldn't tell us that because it was too sensitive. But then over the weekend, President Trump seemed to backtrack. He said that they were not looking for those Kurdish groups to play a role. He said that they didn't want to make the war even more complex. Since then, we've spoken to two of those groups here who say that they have not been told to stand down by the U.S. And as far as they know, the offensive is still going ahead. I think that adds to the sense that there is confusion or a lack of clarity about what the end game is for this conflict. For instance, does President Trump just want a new Iranian leader that he can do a deal with on the nuclear program? Or is the U.S. and Israel, are they looking for full-scale regime change to end the Islamic Republic? If so, do they want, a military dictatorship that's more friendly to the U.S., or do they want an Iranian democracy? We just don't know, and there's confusion here as well in northern Iraq.
All right, Holly Williams, thank you so much. The U.S. may have been responsible for the bombing of a girls' school in Iran. That is, according to a preliminary government assessment. 175 people were killed in the attack, many of them children. On Friday, our Major Garrett pressed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on the strike.
Have you made any conclusions about whether or not the United States, inadvertently or not, was involved in any military strike at that school?
Well, we're still investigating, and that's where I'll leave it today. But what I will emphasize to you and to the world is that unlike our adversaries, the Iranians, we never target civilians.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is in Doral, Florida, traveling with the president. So, Nikole, we know the president is set to address lawmakers later today there in Doral. How are they reacting to this new assessment about the school? And what else are you learning about the strike?
Yeah, that's right, Adriana. The president is set to address House Republicans at their annual retreat here at his Doral Resort, where it's possible his war strategy in Iran could come up and be a topic of discussion. But we are really hearing mostly from Democrats with respect to this particular strike. Several Senate Democrats issued a statement late last night condemning this apparent school strike. They say that they are horrified, saying in a statement, quote, "The killing of school children is appalling and unacceptable under any circumstance." They are also calling for a thorough investigation by the Pentagon, although, as you heard Secretary Hegseth tell our Major Garrett, the matter is under investigation. Now, the president was asked about this attack over the weekend, and he put the blame on Iran. But again, the White House and the defense secretary insisting that this matter is still under investigation. As for that preliminary assessment that you brought up, what we do know, according to a person who was briefed on that, is that this didn't appear to be an intentional strike, but that the U.S. is likely responsible because they were operating in the area and may have had dated intelligence. So again, we'll see what more details come out as this investigation continues.
And when you see satellite images of this area, there's an Iranian military base that's literally right next to the school. So, all of it plays a role, but it's just so tragic.
It really is. Meanwhile, here at home, the war is causing oil prices to spike, which, of course, has a major impact on American consumers, Nikole. The president put out a Truth Social saying that this is something that we should get used to, but that it's, I guess, in the long run going to be worth it. But has the administration given any timetable for how long it could last?
Yeah, well, look, both the president and members of his cabinet have indicated that they hope that this conflict will be short-lived. At one point, the White House said it could be a matter of 4 to 6 weeks. The president obviously not putting a definitive timetable on it, but when he was asked about rising gas prices, he said that he believes that this will be a short excursion. He also posted overnight on Truth Social that he ultimately believes short-term oil prices will drop rapidly once the Iranian nuclear threat is destroyed. So that being said, the Secretary of Energy, of course, was also on Face the Nation, where our Margaret Brennan asked him about it. He says in terms of these rising energy prices that he expects this could be weeks, not months. Now, important to note that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is also calling on the president to tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to try to help lower prices in the interim. But that is something that both the secretary and the president haven't necessarily put on the table and kind of downplayed. The president saying there's already a lot of oil out there, whereas the secretary says that the administration would only do it if needed. Vlad and Adriana.
Nikole, Killion, thank you so much.
Norwegian authorities are investigating an explosion that took place outside of the U.S. Embassy in Oslo. Police say the blast occurred at around 1 a.m. local time. There are no reported deaths or injuries, just minor damage to the building. No suspects have been identified so far. The head of the Oslo Police Investigation Unit says the explosion may have been an attack linked to the fighting in the Middle East.
The State Department is assisting Americans trying to leave the Middle East, but it's also facing growing criticism from Americans who have evacuated and said they received zero help from the U.S. government. So let's bring in CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis. Olivia, what is the latest that you're hearing from the State Department on their efforts to help Americans leave the region?
Sure, Adriana. So over the weekend, the State Department released updated figures on the number of Americans overseas who had received assistance of some sort, putting that figure at 19,000. Now, that number includes some people who were actually helped to leave, physically put on a flight or a bus to safety, but it also includes people who may simply have been given information over the phone by the task force. So it's not a very precise measure of exactly how many people have been evacuated. Per the department's records, officials have organized now more than 24 charter flights out of the region so far. At the same time, officials are telling us that more than half of the Americans who previously expressed a desire to leave now are declining the government's options. And why might that be? A variety of reasons, including that they have arranged their own travel to leave, they're unable to depart at the time they're offered, or on the terms that they're offered. For example, they can't bring a non-American family member with them. And so while the department is saying that it's going to continue to provide options who want them to the people who want them, we're beginning, they say, to see a mismatch between the supply of government-provided options and the demand among people in the region who want them.
So, Olivia, last week we heard from one traveler who said that they received little to no help as they tried to make their way home. I want to play a bit of what she told us and then get your reaction.
They're just answering calls, and they don't. It's like, you're putting people on these calls where I'm on the other side in a crisis, literally, and you have nothing to tell me. You don't have, and they say, "Oh, we're working on a plan." Okay, tell me something. I haven't gotten anything. No one, anyone who has left here, left on their own.
So how is the administration responding to stories like this one? Because there are thousands of them.
Absolutely. And usually when we reporters raise these individual cases with the State Department, which many of us have done in the recent days, officials tell us that they are going to follow up directly. And then it's sort of harder to track what actually happens. And it is important, as you note, Vlad, these stories are very much still out there. Some travelers have had a lot of difficulty getting a response or just a viable option for where they are. And there are these still complex real-life factors at play. So while the State Department has been facilitating departures, we're told, for some non-American family members, minor children and spouses, that eligibility becomes less clear for example, elderly non-American parents who, if you're an American living in the region with close family, it's a very difficult choice if you have the option to leave and your close family members do not.
All right, Olivia, thank you so much.